Alright, hopefully a little better spot to see what I'm doing. I've got my motor mounted, I've got it cinched up, I've got my mount cinched up. I've checked and made sure that my spinner is centered and the right distance away. Appears to be fine. Instead of being an 1/8 inch off of this front plate, I'm actually a little more than a 1/16. So everything's sucked in a little bit more, which I should get by with just fine. Alrighty, so let's see what's next. I would imagine that, let me look at my manual here. Go ahead and put my cut-off prop that I use for that. Handy tool whenever you break a, and I usually wait until I break a good size prop. I cut one end of it off and leave the other end, if possible, on it. And then I drill my hole out a little larger so it'll fit on almost any engine. And I've got a real handy tool whenever I have to measure from the firewall to my thrust washer. Okay, now I could, let me see here. I'm just putting some of the hardware on the front of the motor so it's don't get it knocked off my table or something. And let me see what they say next. I would imagine they're going to want you to work on the throttle linkage. Yep, that looks like what they got in mind. Oh, I see here they've also include a fuel tank brace. Okay, they've got, let me see here. Oh, right. Looks like they've got a piece of wood in here to be used. Okay, and that's why they didn't say anything about the fuel tank earlier. They're actually mounting the fuel tank brace on the bottom of this plate that screws in, which is really great because I always make my fuel tanks removable now. In the past, I would have a little problem here or there with the fuel tank, and I used to mount them up solid, and it was a real problem. Be a real chore to get out of there. So let's see here. They're saying, I just want to make sure. This piece lays right in here. This is for your battery and stuff. It actually is a little tight. It's actually really tight. I don't know why. Try a few different ways. Okay. Now it goes right there. There it is. Pretty close. Anyway, it doesn't fit in there real good, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take my sanding block and go around my edges a little bit. It's pretty common. And so you just, of course, clean your edges that are going to hit other edges to give it a little more clearance. It usually doesn't take much. These little sanding blocks are great. I read the other day of how to make them. You just get a little bit of angled aluminum, and then you just use some kind of adhesive to stick your sandpaper, which is fine, because these are a little pricey, but they're really handy. But if you want to make one, it's a lot cheaper way to do it, probably. Yeah, I'm getting close. Pay attention to where it's hitting at. This one's hitting mainly on these ends. Way you're making room where you need it to pop down in there. So close. Not there yet. And see, if you force this stuff, you'll tear up something. Needs to sit in there nice and easy. And there it is. It went down pretty nicely that time. Alright, now they're showing this one little piece here to hold the back of the fuel tank. And I don't know if I think that's enough. I'm going to glue it on there and see. But I don't really believe that's enough. Something moved around over there. I believe I would make a little bit more, make a little better spot. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to CA that piece on there and see if I think it's adequate. To hold the fuel tank. Now granted, it's a great idea to have a removable plate hold the fuel tank, because that's what I do on all my models now. My thought is just that this one little piece on the bottom, it seems to me like in the right condition that could pop that little piece off with the weight of fuel, and your fuel tank start moving around. So I'm considering putting just basically another piece here or something to hold it a little better. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let that set up for a second. I CA'd it into place, which CA will, well, CA holds pretty darn good. Most of the old timers a lot of them don't even use epoxy. They just use CA and do real well with it. So I'm going to go ahead and set this down in there. My CA is set up a fair amount. And see how much pressure that puts against it. And see how I could make something to hold it a little better. It actually does go up against the back of it, and it does hold it pretty firmly. So all I need to do is I need to put, I'll probably put a little block here and a little block there. And it'll make a little firmer hold on that tank. Hopefully improve the chances of it ever coming out. I mean, improve it. Make it a little stronger to where it won't ever come out. I'm looking for some of my wood. I just need a couple little pieces of square hardwood stock, and I know I've got them, it's just where they're at. It takes me a minute to find stuff sometimes. Yeah, here we go. I found some balsa, and I can use it. Yeah, I believe that's going to work just fine. When you use balsa for something like this, it works just fine, but you do have to go ahead and harden it up with CA to make it real rigid. I'm going to mark my locations here of how long it needs to go. Where I need to cut it. Okay. And of course, balsa is so easy to work with. But you kind of have to work with it to get the strength out of it. I say that, it's really, really strong, but it's going to be much stronger once I take CA and wick it into it, this piece. So I set it up into position. And I could have done a lot neater job with a saw. All right. I want to make sure that this doesn't protrude past any of these holes, because it might get in the way of something else. I'm not sure, but it might. It looks pretty good. That one looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and CA them in place. And then I can always put a little screw from the top or something if I want to get a little more hold. But And of course I can always use some medium or thick if I need to fill gaps or whatever, but that should give me quite a bit more hold. On my fuel tank. And redundancy is just never really going to hurt you. Now, as far as strength, is all you got to do is wick in a little bit of CA in this. And of course, that's usually easiest done from your ends because they'll soak it in a little faster. And I do a little bit on the front. That should give me quite a bit of strength. Now I'm going to go ahead and let that set up. And of course I really need to stick it down in there and make sure I'm not going to hit any of these push rod tubes. I believe I've got it short enough, but we'll just have to see. Oh yeah, not a problem. It looks like, yeah, that's going to give that a nice amount of hold. And if I wanted to, I could take a screw and put it right here and right here to even give it more, but I believe that's going to be adequate. And I can show you here in a minute when it sets up how strong that actually is. I took their idea of how to hold the tank and I just added 2 safety margins there. To help make that more rigid. It makes this more rigid, and this will screw into place and hold the tank where it's supposed to go. And this is also the plate that you use to do your yeah, they're showing your receiver and your battery, so that's a good place for your receiver and your battery. I use life batteries now mostly, so I can take them in and out of my planes and use them in different planes. I don't mount my battery permanently anymore and haven't for a long time. But anyway, so that's ready. It needs to dry. And let's see where they're showing. Oh, okay. Looks like they give you another servo tray here to go right in front of the other one. Yep, here it is. And this one will be to mount your throttle servo. So, let me see here. I'm going to mount my receiver up forward. So I probably want to get my wires up here somehow. Okay. Okay. You're looking at the back of my head again. I'm going to have to probably reposition my camera or reposition my airplane. Trying really hard to keep the camera in a spot that you can see what I'm doing. But it's really hard when you're working on an airplane not to be right in front of the camera every second. So, have my back turned. So let me move it around a little bit, see if I can get a better spot. Maybe that's a little better for now. And this plate goes right here somewhere. Let me see. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. It slides under here. And right there. There might even be a plate, I think I see it here, that goes on top of that. Strengthen that up. Okay, so they're expecting you to mount your throttle linkage servo right here. Try to get to where you, okay, there you can go. You can see it. Right here, and this little plate that sits in there. So I'm just going to kind of set that there and look it over and see if that's going to work good for me. That is on the right side for my throttle on this engine. Okay. And let's see, I'm going to use a fairly basic servo on my throttle. A little high-tech HS 425 ball bearing. I've used a lot of these and had real good luck with them on little things like throttle. Actually, I used them a lot on my ailerons on my smaller planes. Had real good luck with these servos. Okay, and they're showing your servo turned inward. Okay. Yeah, so they're showing it set this way. Your push rod come through there and come off of this end. That's fine. Let me see, since my plate just lays in there right now. Let me see if my servo fits in there good. A lot of times bottom of the servo is a little large. No, it fits in there good. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put my grommets in my servo and get it ready to use. Your work area really gets pretty botched up pretty quickly. And of course I'm scooting everything around with the manual, and I've got hardware laying here, and I've got tools laying here. So seems like after every part of your build it's a good idea to pick up a little batch of your tools and get them out of your way. Now granted, you're going to immediately need some of them again, some cases, but you still need to get them out of your way and make room for other stuff. Actually, I'm just making room to work. Put my grommets and my bushings in my servo. Had real good luck with most of high-tech stuff. They're pretty reasonable compared to some other brands. I've actually just started experimenting with, I say I just started, I've been using a lot of the cheaper stuff for a while. The Power HD, the Hobby King stuff, and a lot of that stuff's pretty decent. The only thing that I really... Some of the cheap tactic servos were not very good. But most of the... Well, the Power HD brand servos and stuff like that, I've had pretty good luck with most of that. I've had real good luck with the tactic receivers. Most of it... had real good luck with. And now in this particular mount, it's so handy because I can do it right here in my hand. I can go ahead and drill my holes, get it set up to mount my servo, Let me find where it is. I can get it all ready right here in my hand. It makes it a lot easier. Now, I don't push my servo to either side. I try to keep it in the middle. And the reason I do that is so it doesn't vibrate. And I also try to make sure that my ends, where my screws go, are fairly centered to where I've got enough wood there to get a good bite in. But, I drill one hole and put one screw in. That'll hold it in place. Very easy to work with right here in your hand as opposed to in the fuselage where you're working down the fuselage. Hard to hold on to these little parts, especially when you're trying to do it fast. No need to go too tight, it's just to hold it in place. Now I can drill my other 3 holes. Now be careful when you're doing this. It's real easy to do, and I've done it many times. Holding a little part like that as you drill it, it's real easy to drill your finger. And it really hurts. Those little sharp drill bits, the smaller the worse it is, will just gouge right into a finger. I mean, if you had enough pressure, I guess you could go all the way to the bone. Haven't really done that, but I have drilled myself a little bit here and there. So be careful doing that. I don't know if you can hear that noise every once in a while, but it's what it is. We had a fair amount of ice the other night, and that's the ice melting and falling off of my roof of my workshop here. So if you hear an odd noise every once in a while, it kind of startled me a minute ago. That's the ice falling off of my roof. And I'm going to have to go get my phone and turn my music on here in a minute. I listen to my music. I listen to, I believe it's 1.FM or Pandora. And I listen to the classic music, which is the old Johnny Cash and Loretta Lynn and Patsy Cline and Buck Owens. I don't believe it gets much better than that myself. But every once in a while I'll get started working on a plane and forget to turn it on, but pretty quickly I remember and I have to turn it on because it makes it so much more enjoyable. Anyway, now that I've got my screws back out, I'm going to go ahead and put a drop of CA down my holes. Very important to harden those threads. And then of course I also usually harden the wood around it just a little bit. I just wick it into the wood around it. And in this case where I can get to the top and the bottom, I do the bottom also. And as you can see there on the bottom, the screws push the wood out a little bit. That really won't hurt anything. But that's part of the reason why I wick a little bit of CA into my wood, to give it a little more strength. And of course, where I wick it into my screw holes, it'll give it a lot more strength. But now when you use that much CA, you probably can't see it real good on the camera, but it's what it does. It builds up in the holes and it actually clogs the screw holes. And if you leave that clog in there, a lot of times your screw won't even go in there. So you can take a T-pin and clean them out as it's drying. And you can take a paper towel and wick the excess off of it. So just clean them out a little bit. And of course that's usually happens when you use quite a bit more than you need, which I usually do, just to be safe. And now if you do this down in the fuselage and you put way too much, and I've done this before too, you put way too much CA, it'll actually go down in a spot you don't want it, and you'll see it'll puff the covering out and make it look odd. And I've done that. So don't overuse it when you're down the fuselage. You can get by with it a little bit when you got a piece there in your hand. And of course make sure all your CA runs out of your little spout back down into your bottle before you put your T-pin, or you'll have a clog next time you go to use it. Alright, so I'm going to let that dry for a second, and the way they mount this down in the fuselage is adequate but not great. So if I can find a little bit of balsa angle stock, I'll probably strengthen that mount up a hair. Here we go. That's what I need. Yeah, when I mount this down in the fuselage like this, it just sets down in two little grooves here. And as what I'm going to do is where it slides past here, I'm going to put a block on either side. And then I'll be able to CA a little bit here and a little bit there. And instead of just holding right here, it'll hold up here also. And I might even be able to, this front part hangs down just out in the middle of nowhere, and I might even be able to take a piece and come down and give it a little hold in this direction. And I might even be able to do it with a piece of ply. So we'll see. I'm going to let this dry and take a break, and I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, I'm back. I was trying to get my internet radio going to listen to my classic country music that I normally listen to, but I'm actually uploading some videos to YouTube right now on my internet connection, so there's not enough bandwidth for me to get on the internet radio with my phone to hook it up to my stereo system to listen to my classic country. So I'm just going to have to live with the local radio station, the local country station, which is not too bad, and I'll turn it down a little bit. Again, excuse the music in the background. I just have to have music going in the background to work on stuff. I don't know why, but I do. So, that said, earlier I got this little plate for this servo. I drilled my holes and put my servo in there, and I CA'd it, but now that I've got it here in my hand, I'm going to go ahead and run my screws back in it real quick. See how hard they are to thread in. Sometimes it's pretty tough after you CA them, and I use a lot of CA, so it'll be handier to do while it's out here in my hand and when I attach it into the fuselage. But yeah, I just started doing my YouTube videos again just recently, and I got my cameras out, and I found a bunch of different videos that I had ready for YouTube, and I found some partial build videos, and some of the files got corrupted, so they're not complete builds, but I'll just have to put the ones that I've got. I really like to do complete build videos from start to finish, but a lot of times some of the files get corrupted somehow, and a lot of times I don't get it all filmed. Actually, on this plane, I hadn't even I had already built the wings completely, retracts, servos, everything. I got the wings completely done before I even had a thought about doing the videos. So yeah, this will be a partial video itself. Alright, well, let's see here. I've got now this plate here is to hold your receiver and your battery. So whatever provisions I make to hold my receiver and my battery, I need to go ahead and get them taken care of before I try to put it down in there and then do it inside. So I'll do that here in just a minute, and then I've already got my servo mounted here and my piece to go down my fuselage, and they want you just well, they want you to just glue this on these corners here, and they do have a little piece of wood forward that it slides into to make a slot, which really helps strengthen it up. But I believe I'm going to make some little blocks, and I've already got a piece of balsa to do it with to strengthen that up a little bit. Let's see if I can get my servo wire out of my way here, where I can set this down in here. Yeah, just about. And it's I would try to show you what I'm doing down in here, but really there's no way you're going to be able to see it. I don't believe. Here we go. Okay, about got it. It's going to be a little harder with the servo already in place, but it's going to be a lot easier. There it is. And it goes in place there. There it is. Okay. Now I probably need to go ahead and mix up a little 6-minute epoxy to epoxy that plate down. It fits pretty well. My servo is where it needs to be. My linkage is going to come out where it needs to be. I really don't see any problem with that, and I am gonna, it does have a little slot up here forward to go in to strengthen it up, so that's pretty good engineering. And then if I put a little piece of wood here to strengthen it up. Now I won't be able to put one on this top side, not much of anything, because it'll get right in the way of my linkage. Although I could put a small piece of wood there. Let me see here what I've got. Probably wouldn't hurt anything. Yeah, I could probably get by with that little piece of balsa there. And then I'm going to use this longer piece on the other side. And it should really strengthen up that tray. And I really, of course, That may be overkill the way this all sets together. It couldn't go too far. I'm actually going to pull my servo back out while I'm gluing this. It'd be awful handy to already have my servo in there, but it's kind of hard to fit in place with it already in there. But I did want to do this anyway, so I would have my screw holes already threaded and everything into where I CA'd my holes. It'll make it go in much easier here in a minute. But to set it in there and epoxy it, I believe I'm just going to go ahead and take this out and set it to the side. Let me fit it again. Make sure it sets down everywhere it needs to go to get as much adhesion with the epoxy as possible. There it is. And it does pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to want to get my, let me turn this a little bit where maybe you can see in there here better. And raise my camera up a little bit, get a better view. You really have to work at keeping a good camera view and a good angle when you're working on stuff. Otherwise, it's hard to see down into where you're working. So I'm going to be working a lot harder at keeping a decent camera angle so you can see what I'm doing. So anyway, here we go. That piece seems to fit pretty good where it goes. I went ahead and took my servo back out. Now I'm going to whittle my piece back out, and then I'm going to try to get all my servo wires out of my way here so I don't get any epoxy on them or anything. Okay, I got them pretty good. Okay, let me mix up some epoxy. And let me see, here it is. I stated the other day that I've been using mostly 6-minute epoxy on everything now, and I actually have. And I didn't get a chance to read to see if there's much difference in strength. I'm pretty sure, and I've always heard that there is quite a bit of difference in strength, but the main reason I've been using 6-minute instead of 30-minute is because my 30-minute seems to go bad. Let me see, I guess it's the resin part that goes bad, and there's a way that you can reconstitute it by putting it in hot water, but the bottom line is I didn't have any 30-minute epoxy handy on several of the builds I've done lately, so I've just used 6-minute, which I believe is plenty strong for most applications. And I really believe that mostly the reason why in the manual and stuff will have you use 30 is not so much for strength, but it's more for just working time. And I've seen some instances on some stuff that I've done lately that using the 6-minute really does rush you. You've got to really get things done, and you got to get them done quick. So I'm going to make sure I got plenty here. So anyway, I'm going to order some 30-minute, and I've had better luck with Zap adhesives, the Z-Epoxy. I've had a lot better luck with it lasting and everything. I think it's a better product than the Great Plains. The Great Plains is fine, but the Z-Epoxy is much better, but it's more than twice the price. And I personally have a really hard time paying for something that I think is overpriced. So I haven't bought any, and I'll probably go ahead and get me some 30-minute epoxy. But this this particular application, I probably wouldn't be using 30-minute epoxy anyway. 6 is fine. It's enough. I should be able to fit that in there really nice in a short period of time, so I don't need the working time. And 6 should be plenty strong, so I don't need a bunch of extra strength. So I think this will work just fine. Anyway, so I'm going to put a little bit right here, and I'm actually overdoing it a hair there because I'm hoping to get some real good hold on this piece. So I'm using probably a little bit more than I need to, which it shouldn't hurt anything. But now if you do use a fair amount more, be careful not to make a huge mess down in there and get it all over your wires and everything. You'll regret it. And I'm also going to put a little bit on this little piece here where the two pieces come together. And I might even put a little bit on after I set the piece down in there to get it in just the right location. Alrighty. I believe I got it where I need it. Now let me set my piece down in there. Get it positioned. There it goes. Alright. Seemed to do a pretty good job, but I did have a little bit more hair to put on this top edge, which I believe if I do that, I won't even need my little strengthened pieces. Of course, it's hard to get right where you want it. These little sticks help, but it's still hard to put right where you want it. There we go. Okay. I got a pretty good scald on it. And it's actually kind of trying to push up out of its spot. So I'm going to go ahead and went ahead and clean my stick off, because I clean it off each time so I can reuse it. But I'm going to go ahead and hold that into place for approximately somewhere around 6 minutes to keep it right where I want it. And so I'll go ahead and hold this into place for a minute until it sets up, and then I'll be back.